Hello there YouTube and welcome to another video. Today's video I am going to be highlighting my Void Gauntlet, Ice Gauntlet build that I use primarily in wars. This is my main spec, this is my main build, this is what I use in all wars that I do across 3 different characters. It's been about 5 months since I've done this kind of video and I've done an updated build guide. A lot of things have changed. We have another update coming in very soon. Not too many crazy changes to the VG build, so I want to update you guys on what I'm using in terms of gear, just everything with like gems, resistance splits, abilities, all that stuff, man. So let's dive into the video. If you guys like this video, if you guys find it informative and find it helpful, be sure to like the video, subscribe to the channel. If you want to see a lot of VG, IG, medium gameplay in terms of wars and OPR, be sure to check out my Twitch channel, twitch.tv/Palmadelic, and let's dive in. All right, so I have 3 main characters. One character, this is my main character, Palmadelic. This is the character I've been using since launch. I am on Orifina. I am in the Handsome Blokes. This is my main company. This is my main spec. This is where I mainly, this is where I have probably my best set of VG gear. I'm gonna go through my other characters that I have on Marama along with my fresh start character, kind of go through my thought process on making those builds. But this is my main spec. This is where I've kind of spent most of my time playing the game and spent most of my time trying to make the best VG IG set that I can in terms of using gold, crafting, all that stuff. So I'll kind of just fly through this. I have a couple of different VGs I use. Right now I'm kind of using this Keen Speed Scream. Really good Void Gauntlet. I'll kind of go through BIS Void Gauntlets in a second here. I have a Shirking one I don't really use too often. I also have a Keen Vicious, very standard 3 perk Void Gauntlet, good for any new VG user. If you can get your hands on a Keen Vicious Scream, very good Void Gauntlet. In terms of like BIS Void Gauntlets, I would say Keen or Vicious, either one. A lot of people like to argue if you should have double Keen or not. Me personally, I don't care for the double Keen. I think it's good. I don't think it's necessary though. I have friends that would disagree. They think double Keen is the play. I don't think it's too necessary, but with the upcoming changes to Void Gauntlet in the next patch, they are going to be changing this perk right here. Refreshing Harvest is going to turn into like a right click to remove debuffs and not cooldowns. So with that said, double Keen might actually be the play next patch at the end of March here. But besides that, I think the best Void Gauntlet you can get in terms of burst damage is going to be like a Keen Scream Attunement or Keen Void Chain Void Chain Nature Chain, whatever. Keen Chain Scream is also really good for building ults and just more burst damage. But I think the best Void Gauntlet you can probably get with the next patch with that right click nerf is going to be a Keen Refreshing Move Scream. I think that's going to be the best Void Gauntlet next patch. But we'll have to see. We'll have to see how things play out and how things go. But I think the refreshing move is probably going to end up being the play. So that's kind of what I've got my eyes set on in terms of getting a next Void Gauntlet. Ice Gauntlet, right now on my main, I use Enchanted, Unending Thaw, Refreshing Move. Refreshing Move, Unending Thaw. Refreshing Move is just 1000% required on all Ice Gauntlets, in my opinion, both on offense and defense in wars. Just more ice walls, man. Refreshing Move is BIS. When you use your Tomb, and then you don't have Tomb up, you can use your Ice Gauntlet to get your Tomb back up, stay alive longer, more survivability. I think every Ice Gauntlet user, whether you're a VG or a Blunderbuss user, you should be having Refreshing Move on your Ice Gauntlet. Right now, I also have a Vicious Refreshing Move, Deadly Frost. If I do have Unending on armor, this is what I would use. Absolute BIS for an Ice Gauntlet would probably be Refreshing Move, Deadly Frost, and either Vicious, Enchanted, or Chain, or Attunement would be pretty good. I think those are all very good Ice Gauntlets to use, but Refreshing Move, definitely BIS. The only reason I use Crystalline Curse is because I don't have Unending on my armor. If I did, I would want this hat piece to be Resilient, Freedom, Unending Thaw, and then I could use this Refreshing Move, Deadly Frost Ice Gauntlet instead. I think that would be better. But for now, because I don't have Unending on armor, I use it on my Ice Gauntlet because in my opinion, and I've talked to other VGs about this, I just don't see a world where you should drop Unending Thaw. This also the frost effect from Unending Thaw also remains when you use like Ice Wall, not just Ice Storms. And slowing ability and rooting ability is just way more massive impact than like a 2 seconds you get from the reduced cooldown on like Ice Wall. If you can hit your autos with your Ice Gauntlet, you're still going to see your ice cooldowns go pretty fast. Another reason why you just wouldn't want Unending Thaw removed from your Ice Gauntlet is if you do use Refreshing Move properly along with Refreshing Frost on the Ice Gauntlet, Refreshing Frost will also reduce your cooldown. So, I mean, if you do a storm and then you tomb inside of the storm, I mean, it's going to reduce the cooldowns, right? So everything you use inside of Ice Storm or inside of Ice, even if it's in your Ice Wall, if you use Tomb in there, it's going to reset your cooldowns a little bit. So it's still good to have Refreshing move Deadly Frost on your Ice Gauntlet, I think, but you need to make sure you're not dropping Unending as a whole to sacrifice for Deadly Frost. I don't think it's worth. That is just my opinion, though. So to kind of fly through my armor, right now I'm rocking Resilient, Freedom, Critical Retry. I think Critical Retry is an okay perk. I don't think it would be necessary on VGIG. I think it's good. I don't think it's terrible, but I would rather have like a weapon perk here, or Shirking Fort. So then I have Resilient, Shirking Fort, Nullifying Oblivion. Oblivion is a must-have perk on all VG sets. Freedom, Shirking Fort, Refreshing. This is where I drop 1 Resi to go to 4 Resilient instead of 5. Resilient, Shirking Fort, Freedom. In Strength, I do eat 10 points on the Strength there because of everything 625, so I eat the 10 points there. Then Resilient, Freedom, Diminishing Orb. But Dim Orb is also a necessary perk on all VGs in terms of war. You definitely want this on your armor or on your weapon. I think you would want to prefer Scream on your weapon because the 40% disease is just bigger on weapon than it is armor. So you want Scream on weapon, Dim Orb, and Oblivion in your armor for sure. If you can get Unending in your armor and then Deadly Frost on your weapon, that is going to be absolute bliss. So right now I'm rocking 4 Resilient, 3 Shirking Fort, 4 Freedom. I would like to get to 5 Freedom, but if I have to sacrifice to go to 4 Freedom, it's not that bad right now. In terms of jewelry, I have a couple of different amulets that I use. I have 2 amulets that I use right now. I use Health / Stam, which is kind of the meta right now. I think in medium VG, Slash Protection is not 1000% necessary. I think you can get away with using Champion's Yami, which is what I've been using quite often recently. And then what I do is I go 2 Moonstones and I go 15 Slash, 5 Strike and Thrust, 10% Elemental. And then I use Oak Flesh when I'm doing wars. Champions is really good because you still get Stam. Stam is better than Slash in my opinion. It's going to save your life more than Slash will. Shirking and Power is also really good. Another reason why I don't use another thing about my splits here, my gems, is I don't use Rune Glass in my armor for VG. Reason being is because in VG with Oblivion and this perk, the gain in power when casting abilities within 5 meters, most of the time when you're throwing down Oblivions in wars, you're going to be around 2 to 3, maybe 4 or 5 people, and you're going to be within 5 meters of those people to activate Oblivion under their feet so that you can actually proc Nullifying Oblivion. So with that said, you're empowered out of your mind constantly, especially if you're screaming and then you're orbing and you're using all your abilities next to people. You're just going to be empower capped out of your mind. You're also empowered while you're standing in Oblivions. So I mean, the reason I don't use Rune Glass in armor is because Rune Glass in armor actually is an empower itself. So you're empower capping yourself so much on VGIG that it's just not necessary, where you could just get that extra couple of percentage on your resistances to make you a little more tankier. I've never seen really I've used Rune Glass in armor for months, and I've gone back to just using regular gems because I just don't see a huge difference in damage, in overall total damage in wars. And in terms of burst damage, I don't see it either. So I definitely recommend in medium VGIGs just use regular gems instead of Rune Glass. You know, it's also personal preference, but in my opinion, in terms of min-maxing, I don't think Rune Glass is necessary because it does count as an empower. And if you're playing VG correctly, you should be empower capped most of the time anyway. Ring, I use Champions. Absolute bish for Champions to replace this. I would want Keen, Refreshing, Invigorated Punishment. That would be my absolute bish. I think Hardy is a dead perk in a medium class. And then Earring, I use Refreshing Toast, Purifying Toast, Refreshing. Purifying Toast is insane, especially with the nerf to cleanse pots over the past couple months, where you lose debuffs when we're popping regens. You should be popping regens on cooldown in wars. So I do see a lot of people using, instead of the cooldown reduction perk, like Refreshing Ward, Refreshing Evasion, whatever it is that you're using in terms of cooldown reduction inside your gear. A lot of people use Regenerating, which I don't really think is that great, but a lot of people like to cope that it is. So that's just my opinion, but what have you, everyone is entitled to their opinion. My opinion is you go to the cooldown reduction perk, because with that, I mean, it's going to stack on top of your attributes. So when I'm using VGIG, I use 50 focus, 200 con, and then the rest into int. As you can see on my main, I do eat the 10 points into strength with my pants, but yeah, man, this is my main build. These are going to be my perk trees. So for Void Gauntlet, I use all the passives. I might switch to this when they do change it in the next patch. I'm not sure yet. Void Collar is really good with 50 focus. It does give you a little bit of sustaining healing. I think you can drop this because right now, this is where things kind of change for the next patch. You can drop this right now because as a VG in wars, you should be perma just mixing in right clicks after abilities, after auto attacks, just to get the cooldowns back, man. And that's kind of the skill gap there. So with that said, if you're right clicking enough, you shouldn't really need this. You really won't need that mana. You'll get your mana back from right clicking enough. So essentially you can drop this perk, but next patch I might end up using this perk and this perk because of the, but I probably still drop this perk because I'll right click to get my debuffs off. But you'll probably be able to grab this, maybe drop Void Collar. We'll see how that goes. Ice Gauntlet, a lot of different changes you can do with Ice Gauntlet. This is typically the build I do. The necessary perks, I like this one, but you could drop it. If you really wanted to drop this perk, you could, but I think it's still good. I think blocking is also huge. I think a lot of people don't block enough with their Ice Gauntlet. I think blocking with your Ice Gauntlet is very essential. This perk is insane. The Fortify, absolute must. This is where you can kind of pick what you want. A lot of people like to run this one. I like the increased movement speed within ice, so I choose this one. I think this one's kind of a dead perk, even though it has no cooldown. It's still good, but I see a lot of people use this, but I've used it before and I don't really see any benefit in terms of it. So that is my main spec on VGIG. I use Stone Form on attack to try to get through gates. I still do use Vines primarily on attacks, and especially defenses I use Vines. Vines is like the best for VGIG. Next patch with the Firestorm, that could come into play. I'm not sure yet, but right now I use Vines primarily, and I'll use Stone Form sometimes on attack just to be able to go through the gate, get a deep wall on everybody, and get kind of behind everybody to allow my teammates to get in through the gates on attacks in wars. So okay, so this is my alternate account. This is on Marama. This is the map right now. The company I am is minus 15k. I also have kind of built this character out to be a little different than my main, because just the way that the gear kind of came about in terms of obtaining it and what I'm building around. In my opinion, like my main set that I have, Freedom is absolute bis. I think Resilient Shirking Fort Freedom is what you should go for. I think we're in a defensive perk meta across all different types of builds. Being more defensive and having more defensive perks to survive longer is always going to be better than a lot of cooldown reduction. So in terms of what I think is absolute bis, I think my main is a lot better than my other characters just because of the freedom. I have 3 Shirking Fort, 4 Resi, 4 Freedom. I think it's insane. I can get out of a lot of things. I can have a lot of survivability, a lot of damage mitigation. So that is kind of where I stand on that topic. But in terms of my alternate account and my fresh start, which we'll get into after this, just how I've kind of built my character out, because what I've kind of obtained and what I've been able to get access to. So my VG is Vicious Attunement Scream. Once again, this is one of the accounts where I don't use double keen. I actually don't mind it at all. I think Vicious is really good. Attunement, really good for burst damage. Scream on VG. This is my Ice Gauntlet. Very terrible. Keen is a dead perk on Ice Gauntlet, but it's just kind of what I've obtained. I have Refreshing Move, Unending Thaw. Once again, I don't have Unending Thaw on my armor, so I don't have a Deadly Frost on my Ice Gauntlet, which I would prefer, but another Void Gauntlet I was using for a while was Vicious Scream Keenly Jagged. Really good for alt charge. Keenly Jagged, not a very bad perk, but I do prefer the attunement just because more burst damage. Even if it's only on one person, it's still an 18% weapon damage, and it has a cooldown of 1 second. So you're just perma procking that all the time, whether it's auto attacks, diminishing orbs, or screams and things like that. So on my gear, I have Resilient, Critical Retreat, Nullifying Oblivion. Once again, Critical Retreat not the best. I'd prefer like Shirking Fort or Freedom if I could build off that. I have a 2-perker chest piece, Resilient, Shirking Fort, Resilient. If I could update this on this character, I would want Refreshing. I use Wizen Gloves because within this build I am using Heavy Pants, Heavy Chest, which allows me to use Light Gloves, and these are just free as a drop, and it's Shirking Fort, Refreshing. Elia version not bad either, especially next patch with it being able to mitigate damage against like detonates and things like that. I have Resilient, Shirking Fort, Refreshing, Heavy Pants, Resilient, Refreshing, Dim Orb, Boots. These I got from my PvP track. These were all bought. This was free, bought, and I bought as well. Didn't craft any of this stuff. I have a Health Stam Refreshing Amulet. Once again, I do like to use the 2 Moonstones just to have 15 slash, 5 strike and thrust, 10 Ellie. If I want to switch it, I do have a Health slash Stam on this account as well, but ever since I switched off of slash protection on VG, haven't really felt that crazy of a difference. Stam definitely saves you more than slash, and having like an extra refreshing is nice. So with this character, with how much refreshing I have refreshing here, 2, 3, 4, and 5 on my earring, and then the 50 focus. I think next patch with the right click nerf, being able to not be able to right click for cooldowns on VG, I think a lot of refreshing is going to be really good. I would prefer freedom, of course, like I said, but just the way that my character's kind of been built out. I mean, I got these for free, I got this for free, so I kind of built around that, right? So I just kind of built around that and just stacked 4 resi, 3 shirking fort plus refreshing perks, and then critical retry and things like that. So my earring is champions on this as well. Once again, keen invig is just bis. I would prefer keen refreshing invig, but it's very hard to come by. All right, so this is my fresh start character. Once again, kind of the same thing as my alt account, where I just kind of came across like some pieces. The way that I ended up building out this character was what happened with as I was running M10s, and I got a bind on equip drop of resilient shirking fort, insatiable gravwell, medium gloves, full strength. Those are worth a ton of gold in this game. It's a very high acquired item, so I sold those for just about gold cap, and what I did is I used that gold to build out my VG set. So this was crafted vicious scream chain void. This is one of my favorite void gauntlets. I do like the chain, like I said, for the alt charge. I would have preferred like attunement, but I think next patch refreshing move is going to go up. Ice Gauntlet is just keen, refreshing move, enchanted. This was like 2,000 gold or something, very cheap. I like enchanted on Ice Gauntlet. I would prefer Deadly Frost instead of keen, and that would be absolute bis. But right now we're not using Deadly Frost. It is something that I'm in the works of trying to get. I do have unending on armor, so my feet are resilient, shirking fort, unending thaw. So on my headpiece I have resilient, refreshing, critical retry, resilient, shirking fort. My gloves are shirking fort, oblivion, refreshing. This is where I drop 1 resi to have 4 instead of 5. 4 resi is still good. 5 resi might come into play next patch, but we'll see. But 4 resi, between 4 and 5, you really don't feel too much of a difference. So I would always prefer to go 4 resilient instead of 5, because you won't feel that 5th resilient. So my gloves are shirking fort, nullifying, oblivion, refreshing. These were free from OPR. I got resilient, shirking fort, dim orb. This is what procced me to make the VG set in the first place, because I was like, this is easy to build off of. So that's why I'm kind of building around shirking fort. If this was freedom, I would just build fully on freedom, and that's, I would probably just drop shirking fort as a whole. I think that's fine to do, but shirking fort is good. And then so since I got that, that's why I kind of started to buy these pieces. This was really cheap for some reason. This was like 3k gold. This is, you know, just a 2-perker. I'd prefer resilient shirking fort refreshing, or resilient shirking fort unending thaw, and then get a deadly frost. Or resilient shirking fort refreshing would actually be, because I have unending thaw here, but and then my boots, resilient shirking fort, unending thaw. Once again, champions amulet. I don't really have a better amulet on this character, so I use champions. Keen in, and then champions ring again. Keen invig, bis, would prefer refreshing, but because Hardy's a dead perk in medium, and then a refreshing earring. So this is my build on my fresh start character. On fresh start, this is Amara. I am in the company of Cactus. I am one of the leadership for this company as well. We just recently took Everfall. We own Ebonscale and Brightwood. So those are my builds. Once again, on all characters, I run 200 con, 50 focus, full int. I use the same trees on every single build. But that is my medium VGIG set. I know a lot of people want to ask about my VGIG sets, what I think should be used. To kind of just go over that once again, and to kind of highlight what I think you should use in terms of VGIG is go for 4 resi and 4 freedom at least. If you can get to 5, great, do it. If you can mix in some shirking fort pieces with resilient shirking fort freedom, that's great too. I think absolute bis would be 3 to 4 shirking fort, 4 to 5 freedom, 4 resi. Obviously very expensive, very hard to make. If you're going to make a full 2-perk set, you go resilient shirking fort or resilient freedom, right? Same with the chest piece. And then on your gloves or boots, you go oblivion and dim orb on either one. Doesn't really matter. Just get one of those perks on either or both. Get dim orb or oblivion here, dim orb, oblivion here. Get resi with it, resilient oblivion. And then on pants, go just go get the free pants of regular pants, resilient, refreshing, shirking fort. Very easy to get, free bis as well. So if you don't want to build off freedom and you want to get a budget shirking fort medium VG set, you go resilient shirking fort, resilient nullifying oblivion, regular pants right here, and then you go resilient dim orb. This will put you at or no, you don't go resilient dim orb, you go resilient shirking fort, resilient oblivion, regular pants, resilient shirking fort, refreshing, and then you go dim orb shirking fort, and you'll be 4 Resi, 4 Shirking Fort, full perks. Then you go Unending Thaw, Refreshing Move, Ice Gauntlet, and then you go a Keen Scream or a Vicious Scream, Void Gauntlet for a 2-perker. Same with Jewelry, you go Hell Stam, you go Keen Invig, and then you go Refreshing Toast, Purifying Toast. That would be the full 2-perk VGIG set. Also, just always use Vines. Vines is BIS. Vines is definitely the play. Next patch, maybe the Fire one comes into play because it does like debuffs and things like that, but for now, use Vines. I do think Stoneform is good for getting into gates to try and get past enemies, get a deep wall, like I said, and then you kind of create some chaos behind everybody. You can drop a lot of your VG abilities, helping your teammates get into the fort in wars and things like that. So once again, that's my VGIG sets. I'm not going to go too far in depth. I do have other guides out there of how to build out VGIGs, but I wanted to update you guys on what I'm using, what my thoughts are behind making my gear, what I prefer, BIS, all that stuff. So if you guys have any questions, be sure to check out my Twitch, twitch.tv/Palmadelic. Come on in there and ask me VGIG questions. I'm happy to help, happy to answer, happy to help you build out your sets and all that stuff. So if you guys like the video, be sure to like the video, subscribe to the channel, and I will see you guys in the next one.